everyone, it's Jennifer from Flux. In this video, I'm going to show you how to crochet this beautiful sugar maple hat. Sugar maples are one of my favorite fall trees, and I wanted to make a fun fall hat to kind of celebrate the gorgeous colors that they display. This is a super easy hat to make. We're going to make a ribbed rectangle, and I'm going to show you how to create ribbing very easily. And then we're going to seam it together. And then finally, I'm going to show you how to create this big, beautiful pom-pom for the top. So let's get started. The finished hat measures about 9 inches tall, has a 20-inch circumference, and our big pom-pom here is about 4 inches high. However, I'm going to show you all along the way how you can customize this hat. You can make it really any size you like. For this project, you'll need a pair of scissors, a tapestry needle. A tape measure is super helpful to measure as you go along. We're going to be using a 9mm N crochet hook. This is my Furls Candy Shop hook, in case you're wondering. I can provide the link for that. And then let's look at this beautiful yarn, because we're going to be using 2 skeins of the Vitalana Heathered Chunky. This is a knit crate yarn, in case you're wondering. The colorway is called Clementine, and I just thought it looked like a tree you might see in the fall with the gold leaves and the beautiful oranges. Now each one of these, if you need to substitute, is 60 yards. So I'm going to be using 120 yards of this, and that will include the hat, the pom-pom, all that. And this is a chunky weight yarn. Again, each one is 60 yards, 55 meters, 100 grams, and it's 100% wool. Now, if you are looking at this particular yarn, I will provide the link for this as well. But also know that it comes in dye lots, so you know, that's important to know too when you're using multiple skeins of a yarn. Again, if you need to substitute yarn, chunky weight, 120 yards total, and you'll be just fine. So let's get started. To begin, we're going to put a slip knot on our hook. Wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop. Bring the yarn behind the loop, reach in with your hook, bring up a loop, and tighten. Now I'm going to zoom in so you can see a little bit better. Next, we're going to chain 20. Now for the starting chain, I just wanted to explain that there is no special stitch count because we're just doing double crochets for this. So it doesn't have to be anything special as far as counting or skipping chains or anything like that. But if you want to change the length based on the height, the starting chain is going to determine the height of the hat. And then we're going to work rows to determine the circumference. So we're going to start with a chain of 20. If you find that that's either too short or too slouchy for you, you can change your starting chain size if you like, but we're going to do 20. So to make a chain, wrap the yarn around the hook and bring it through the loop. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. So here's our starting chain, and you want to make sure that it's not too tight where you can't work into the chains, but you don't want it to look loose and too loopy either, okay? As a side note, I don't think I mentioned this before, but the skeins that I showed a minute ago in the video, I wound these into cakes, okay? So if you have skeins like that I showed you earlier in the video, you'll want to wind them into cakes or just a ball of yarn with your hand. So next, what we're going to do is in the 4th chain from the hook, this loop here does not count. Go 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we're going to work a double crochet. To make a double crochet, wrap the yarn around the hook, insert it into that chain, bring up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. And you know what? I'm just going to come in a little bit more. You have 3 loops on your hook. Wrap the yarn around the hook, bring it through the first 2 loops, wrap the yarn around the hook, and bring it through the last 2 loops. Okay? So this is row 1 we're starting. So for the rest of row 1, we're just going to work a double crochet in every chain across. Okay? So we're going to work a double crochet in the next chain. Double crochet into the next chain, double crochet into the next chain, and so forth. Okay, so just work your double crochets all the way across your chain. Coming up to the end of the row, I'm just working a double crochet in that last chain. Okay, so we're not going to worry about this tail right now. We're just going to get it out of our way a little bit. All right, let's move on to row 2. So row 1 was super easy. Row 2 is super easy as well, but instead of just working a regular double crochet, we're going to create a little ridge on our work so it makes our hat look a little ribbed when we wear it. We're going to work into the back loops only, okay? And I'm going to show you how to do that. Now, if you don't want to do that and just want to work regular double crochets, feel free to do that as well. It'll just give your hat a little bit of a smoother, different look. So what we're going to do is chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn our work. Next, we're going to work into those back loops only. So the stitch at the base of our turning chain, this counts as a double crochet, so we're not going to work into that first hole that you come to. So go to that next stitch, and what you'll need to do to see those loops is to turn your stitch towards you. Now, if you look at the top of what you have so far, you can see V's, a series of V's. So the front part of that V is the front loop. The back part of the V is the back loop. We're going to work our double crochets into just the back loop only. So what that's going to do is it's going to leave that loop showing and create a little ridge all the way across. So when you wear it, it'll be a vertical rib, okay? And it'll make more sense as we go along and you can see it kind of play out visually. All right, so remember, skip that first hole or stitch. Go to the next crochet, double crochet, because this counts as one of our double crochets. And we're going to work a double crochet into the back loop only. So wrap the yarn around the hook, turn your work towards you if that helps, insert the hook into just that back loop, bring up a loop, you'll have 3 loops on the hook. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops. Okay, and as you can see, instead of a long column, there's like a little ridge now, okay? So it just adds a little bit of a design element. Let's do that again. Wrap yarn around hook, insert the hook into that back loop, bring up a loop, yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops, yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops, okay? And so you're just going to do this all the way across, working into those back loops only, okay? So I'm going to continue working across and we'll rejoin in just a minute. Okay, coming up to the end, and we're going to work in the back loop only from that last stitch, and then to finish off the row, just work a double crochet in that topmost turning chain. Remember that turning chain that we did? We're going to work a double crochet into that turning chain. Okay, so we have a nice little strip that's going to be our hat. Okay, so the next thing we want to do for row 3, and that's the last row we're going to learn, is chain 3 once again. 1, 2, 3. Whoops. 3. So when we turn, you can see our rib has disappeared. So we want to keep that ribbed look on this side of our work. This is going to be the outside of our hat. This will be the inside of our hat. So when we work on the inside part, sometimes in patterns it's called the wrong side. And then this side is called the right side. It can also be called the public side because that's the side everybody sees. Okay, just there's lots of different terms for it, but it all kind of means the same thing. So the outside of your hat, and then for row 3, the inside of your hat is going to be facing you. So we want to do the opposite of what we did in the other row because we want our rib to show on this side. So we're going to do the opposite of what we did. So for this part, we're going to work a double crochet on the front loops only, okay? So remember, this chain 3 counts as our double crochet. We're going to work a double crochet into that next stitch. So this loop at the base of that chain, because this counts as a double crochet, we're not going to mess with that one. We're going to go to this next one. So now we're going to go in the front loops. Wrap yarn around hook, then come up under that front loop, bring up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on the hook. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it to the first 2 loops. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it to the last 2 loops, okay? So you still have that smooth look, but if you flip it, you're going to have a rib on that side as well, okay? So let's go through here and go all the way across. Let's do a few and then we'll kind of flip it over and look at what we've got. Whoops. Keep dropping my stitches there. All right, we're just working in those front loops only. All right, now we've done a few. Let's flip things over and take a peek. So now we have 2 little ridges that we've created, okay? It's getting, our fabric is looking very pretty and it's perfect fabric for a hat. It's got some ribbing to it. So it gives a little bit of a design element. We have some variegations in color. We have thick and chunky. It's just my kind of a hat, okay? So what we're gonna do is just continue to work in those front loops only, leaving that back loop in place, okay? So if we turn our fabric towards us, you can see those V's in the top. Just coming up to the end of the row, working in that front loop only. And then I'm going to work a double crochet into the topmost chain of our turning chain from the previous row. Okay, so we have the inside of our hat, and then we have the outside of our hat, okay? So for the rest of your hat, and it's not a hat right now, it's going to be a rectangle for a while until we seam it. Just keep repeating rows 2 and 3, 2 and 3, 2 and 3 over and over and over again until you get the circumference that you need. Now I like my hat to have about a 20-inch circumference. So I'm going to, from the starting edge, I'm going to let mine grow to about 20 inches, and then we're going to seam everything together. What I would recommend though, because hats are very personal depending on the size of your head or whoever's head that you're making this for, I would try it on, or have the person that you're giving it to take a tape measure and measure their head. Now you can, there's a little wiggle room here because we do have some stretch to it. And you don't want it to be so snug that it's going to squeeze, but you don't want it to be so loose that it's sliding all around or falling off either, okay? So I'm personally going to take mine to about 20 inches. Now, I grabbed my ruler because I wanted to show you with the starting chain that I did of 20 chains, my little piece here has a height of about 9.5 inches. And when I say height, this is ultimately going to be the bottom of our hat, and it's going to go up vertically. So we're making a tube this way, okay? So just keep repeating rows 2 and 3, 2 and 3 over and over and over again until your hat is the circumference you'd like it to be. I encourage you to, as you make it and it's getting close to the size, maybe wrap it around your head. You could use a clothespin or a chip clip to kind of hold it on there and position it and see what you like, okay? So just keep repeating rows 2 and 3, 2 and 3, and we'll rejoin in just a moment. Just working that last stitch. And as you can see, here's the inside. So it looks pretty smooth stitch-wise, but if you flip it over, we have some lovely ribs in our work, okay? So the next thing we want to do is make this into a hat. But before we begin, what I want to do is just take care of some of these ends. Where we joined the new yarn, we have a couple of ends here. And I want to show you my yarn cake. If you use the same yardage as me, you may not be using the same exact yarn, but if you're using the same weight and the same yardage, you will have a similar amount left. Now I won't say same because we all have personal tension, and I know a lot of people like to experiment a little bit with hook sizes and things like that, and this is a customizable size, so you know some of those things might be a little bit different. But I do have a little bit left here, so I'm also going to show you how to make a pom-pom. Okay, so what we want to do is fold our piece in like that, and we are going to slip stitch seam this together, okay? So actually turn it inside out, my mistake. Okay, turn it inside out, and then what we're going to do is take our hook and we're going to go into the bottom layer and then into the top layer. Now I'm catching my stitch, so I have 2 loops per layer. Let me zoom in so you can see. And what we're going to do is wrap the yarn around the hook, bring up a loop. Now bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. Okay, go into the next stitch, go into the next stitch of the other layer, and work a slip stitch. We're just going to do this all the way across. And what you want to do too is be mindful of your edges lining up correctly. So go in the next layer, go in that next first layer, in the next layer, go in that next layer, go in that next layer. We're just doing this all the way across, and our hat is really chunky, so this is a pretty quick process here that we're doing. We're just going to go all the way across. I'm just checking as I go to make sure things are nice and neat and lined up properly. We don't want to have a crooked hat with a crooked seam. We want things to be nice and neat and straight across. Okay, we're just going in that bottom layer and that next layer. Make sure your edges are still lined up, and you can even hold them in place if you like, if that works a little bit better, to go through both layers here. And then what I like to do is take that last stitch, but I also like to come around and catch it there too, just because when it lays flat, see how it has like a dip in the middle? We don't want that. We want a nice smooth edge of our hat, okay? And then what we're going to do is give it a little tug, straighten it out, and then cut your yarn, wrap it around, and fasten. Okay? So now we basically have a tube. If you want a cowl, you can stop right here. Okay, so take your tapestry needle and go in one layer, come across to the other side, and you can go up into the hat if you like as well, just so your tail won't drop down into your face while you wear it if it pops out. You kind of go up the hat a little bit, give it a little snip, and then flip it around, and we're just going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to just take that end and weave it up into the hat the best we can here. I know the yarn is very chunky, so you gotta kind of wiggle it through. Okay, so now we have a tube. So let's turn it right side out. We have a nice ribbed tube. Let me zoom out. It looks awesome. And our seam is nice and neat as well, okay? So now look at your hat and determine what you want your edge to be. What do you want to lay on your forehead? Sometimes if you stick your arm in there, you can sort of like mimic a forehead a little bit. But do you want this edge to be your forehead, along your forehead, or do you want this? I think this is my favorite bottom edge here. So flip it around, grab another piece of yarn, I would say about 18 to 24 inches long. Grab your tapestry needle and thread it, and then flip it over to where you did that seam. Come up from the bottom, almost all the way through, and just tie it, okay? What we're gonna do is create the crown of our hat. It's super duper easy. So take your needle, and we're just gonna go in and out, and just kind of weave our needle through. And if you're using a large needle like me, you'll for sure see the benefits of using a large needle, because it kind of glides through that bulky yarn a little bit more efficiently, okay? So just go in and out, all around that top edge of your hat, and every so often pull it through just so it's not getting all stuck in there. In and out, all the way through, just along that top edge. And this little tail is sort of like a marker, so we know where to stop, okay? But in and out, all the way around our lovely fall hat. And now, once you're at the top, and this tail is going to help us out here also, you're going to take your tail and just pull it tight to cinch it. Now, don't be too aggressive with your pulling, because you can just snap that yarn off and then you have to start over. This also helps. If you tie the tail to your other tail, you can sort of tie it shut. And what you want to do is to create some very strong knots, so that keeps it held in place, okay? And then straighten out your hat. Now, if you want like a nice little fall beanie, like a nice little ribbed, chunky hat, you can just stop right here, and it's gorgeous. I'm loving this hat. I'm definitely keeping this one for myself. Okay, let's make a pom-pom. Grab a piece of yarn about 12 inches long, cut, set aside. Now you can take the remaining yarn and just wrap it around all 4 of your fingers. We don't need any fancy tools here. So just go around and around and around and around and keep doing that. Okay, so I have this big giant bundle. This is gonna make a wonderful, beautiful pom-pom. I wrapped this around my hand about 110 times, okay? I just did it until I ran out of yarn. Whatever you need to do, you just want a big thick bundle around your hand. You don't want a little teeny tiny pom-pom because your hat is like nice and chunky. You want to kind of like match the look. Okay, so take your bundle and you're going to grab that piece of yarn that you cut a minute ago and just slide everything carefully off your hand. And then you're going to lay it down on the table. Those 2 tails where you began and ended, make those point downward. And then we're going to take our yarn and we're going to tie it super, super tight as possible. I know it's really a challenge when you have very bulky yarn like this. It takes a lot of muscles and finger coordination, but you want to get that as tight as possible. Okay, so tie that down and then use these as handles. And we're going to next cut all the loops that you see, okay? So it's gonna look a little wild and that's normal, but you're gonna kind of like cut all of these loops that you see. Any loops left behind, I'm gonna cut through, okay? So give it a nice cut all the way through. Cut it, cut it. Okay, so it looks completely wild. Totally fine. We're gonna now give it a haircut. Now, under normal circumstances, you'll wanna do this over a trash can because it does get kind of messy. But we are going to do this all right on camera for you. So I am going to just cut it and just let it fall down. It's okay. So we want to get our pom-pom nice and kind of dense looking. So the closer in, if you notice what I'm doing here, the closer in that you cut it, your ends here, the more dense it'll take it in, okay? So give it a nice cut. I'm still holding those 2 tails as handles. That's what we're going to use to attach the pom-pom later, okay? So just cut it down, get all those ends, and every so often hold your little handles here and just give it a fluff. And you'll have some crumbs fall out, you'll have some ends come out. That's good. That's a good thing. And it will reveal some of these ends that you need to keep trimming down. This is a process, you know, you want to take your time with it. Some people love making pom-poms, some people it's not their thing. So, but you want a neat pom-pom because it's going to be like the crown, basically, of your hat. It's going to be a focal point. So you want to make sure your pom-pom is looking nice, looking sharp. All right, so now we're ready to attach our pom-pom to the top of our hat. So if you haven't made a pom-pom till now, this was pretty easy. Nothing fancy. Just takes a little bit of time to sort of neaten it up, okay? And it makes a total mess. So that's why you want to do it over a trash can. Okay, so let's grab our hat again. And what we're going to do is, now this hat is bulky enough that you could probably do this with your hands, but I am going to grab my tapestry needle so I can send it down through the right location of my hat. Oh, we also have these ends too. I'm going to also send those into the middle of my hat, and we'll deal with those in just a minute. Okay, so just put those into the middle of your hat for now. And this one is kind of small, but we're also going to send this one down through the middle. Okay. All right, now grab that beautiful pom-pom that you just made, thread the tapestry needle, And then locate the middle. It should be like a little hole in the middle. And go just outside that hole to center it. And I'm not pulling it all the way through yet because I want to make sure it's really in the center. So wherever you put that, there's the hole, there's our yarn. Kind of cut across to the other side of that hole and do the other tail that way, and that'll help center it. Okay? Now, grabbing all that yarn that you just put through, turn your hat inside out, just so you can work on it for a minute. And then take all your tails, and I like to just tie them together. Now you can weave the ends in if you like, but this is going to be the inside of my hat, so I'm not going to worry about it a whole lot. I'm going to just sort of trim them. But it's up to you. You can do whatever you like. Let me just give them one more tie. Okay, there we go. All right, so just trim it all or weave it in, whatever you prefer. And then you can turn your hat right side out. And it looks so pretty. I'm loving this hat. So we have a beautifully chunky ribbed hat that we created some very, very easy ribs. And we gave it a beautiful pom-pom at the top. It's showing off those beautiful fall colors, and this hat you could take into winter as well. So that is how you crochet the sugar maple hat. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiber Flux video updates. Thanks again!